What's up, Utah? Welcome back to We Are the People Radio. This is your host, Jason Preston, with my beautiful bride. How we doing, baby?
Doing good. Doing excellent.
Yes, you are. Looking dandy today.
Yeah.
Looking great, as usual. Well, hey, I don't want to spend too much time beating around the bush because, honestly, we do a lot of shows, and if there's one show that I've been more excited about than others in a long time, it's this one because of the importance of it. I think it's very clear to people that our country's under attack. All we need to do is look what's happening at our borders, look what's happening in our financial institutions. You can see how the media has put the country at war with itself. Crime is running rampant. The family is being targeted. And the reality is, the challenge is when we are in so much commotion in this world, I always look back at Rome and think, well, what would it have been like to live in Rome when it was about to fall? And I think the reality is it was probably very similar to where we are now. I think there's probably people there that were very concerned and trying to wake people up about what was happening. But the challenge is most of the people were so focused on bread and circus. They were just more focused on being entertained. And I feel like that's where we are right now is I think people sense there's something wrong, but we don't want to slow down and think about it. And today what I ask is that, you take a moment just to slow down and pull away from our phones, pull away from all the distractions, the bread and circus, the hockey team and the rivalry, and let's start to look at what's happening in this country and what's happening in our backyard, because if history bears out according to how it always has, if we do not turn the tide, our children are going to pay a price that we do not want them to pay. We've been blessed with the greatest prosperity in the world. And really what we're seeing is a war between two ideas. That's what this is. There was a war that our founding fathers, there was an idea that our founding fathers had, which is that our rights came from God and that every individual has divine worth and is essentially a king or a queen, and that the government's role is to simply stay out of the way and let them and their family thrive. Well, in a short 200 years, each of us now live better than any emperor could have ever imagined. But what we're dealing with right now is it's our greatest threat isn't China, it's not Russia, it's not Biden. It's another idea, and it's an idea that came about from Karl Marx, an idea that says there is no God and that the state is God, that there is no absolute truth, and that the family must be destroyed so that all ties and all bonds are held by the government, not the family. Thank you, baby. That's why I need my wife. But yes, it's these two ideas. It's the divinity of the individual versus the collective. It's the family as the basic unit of society versus the state. It's truth and the principles that built Western civilization, i.e. the Bible, versus relativism and this new thing they're pushing, which is decolonization, which is why they're trying to tear down the foundations and the statues. It's a strong middle class versus a top-down, bottom-up revolution that destroys the middle class and ends in tyranny. And it's God and absolute truth versus state censorship and, again, moral relativism. This is happening across the country, and the fight that matters most, especially when our capital has turned into the exact thing that our founding fathers revolted against. The government we have now more resembles that than the government that they created. And so the only solution when this federal government gets out of line is for the states to stand up and take that power back, to rein in the federal government. And so that is why we do this show. Again, our show has always been focused on Utah because I don't know how much impact we can have on D.C., but we can have impact in our backyard. And so I want to thank you guys for joining us here on We the People Radio, We the People Utah, and ask you please follow us on our social media, but more importantly on our website. Go there and you can sign up for our newsletter. That way if channels get taken down, we can still get information out. But today we are going to be talking about our governor. And to me, it is the most important fight because we clearly have a leadership problem in this state. And I hope that as we talk about our governor, again, you'll see that this is not personal. This is a question: is this governor leading us back towards the ideas that this country is founded upon, or is he leading us in the direction of collectivism and Marxism. And I just ask that you have an honest conversation with yourself, because I think when people sit and listen and hear some ideas, we have two incredible people, two of my favorite people in their state. As you hear from these people and you listen to some of these ideas, I ask you just have an open heart and ask, is this the type of man that should be leading our state? And if not, what are we going to do about turning things around? So, Alexi, with that being said, why don't you introduce our guests?
Well, I don't really think they need much of an introduction. They don't. But like you said, two of our favorite people here in the state, and all the way from southern Utah. I don't know what they're putting in the water down there, but we got some great freedom fighters down there. What can you do out there? You can share content, and some of the greatest content creators are the ones that have come together on this show today to present to you just the key points on why this race is so important, and why the decision that we have at hand now on who to elect as our governor is as important as it is. Because if we have another 4 years of this, it's just, there's no way to say what direction the state is heading. So we urge you, in addition to our site and our podcast, also subscribe if you're not already listening to Eric Moutsos and Michelle Tanner. They put out some incredible content, mostly Utah specific as well, but they've also put out great content on national issues. So welcome back to the show, Eric and Michelle.
Eric, how you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me.
We're very glad to have you. You've been a rock star. Tell everyone where they can find you. I don't think you need an introduction. I think people know, but tell our listeners where they can find you if they don't know who you are yet.
I don't know. I try to work. I work wherever I'm not shadow banned. So, right now I've got, if you go to my Instagram, that one's okay. X is kind of really starting to, they're not censoring on X right now. I'm at Real Eric Moutsos there. And then on Instagram, if you just go to that link in my bio on Instagram, you can go to all my platforms and find me. And then, of course, my podcast is The American Moutsos Show.
Fantastic. And Michelle, welcome back. We've had Michelle on in studio. She's a rock star. Michelle, how are you?
So good. Thanks so much for doing this and having me back on. And similar to actually you guys and Eric, my channel on YouTube was recently taken down, coincidentally, right after I did a podcast about Governor Cox. Next day, my platform was removed. So I did start a new one on there. It's now under Michelle Tanner Podcast. And then, of course, on X, I've heard that there's not as much censorship. So I recently started on X under M Tanner USA. And then Instagram, I post a lot under Michelle Tanner USA and Michelle Tanner on Facebook. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're glad. So please make sure you're following them. And let's just go. Let's get right at it. So we've got, really what we try to do is break it down into 10 points. We want to make this very simple, very clear. What are the 10 biggest reasons that we see Cox as a threat and a danger to the state of Utah? So Eric, why don't you take the lead and take us off when starting about the first issue, which is probably one of the most concerning to most people: sanctuary state. Are we or are we not a sanctuary state?
Well, and then what is it? When you kind of have an open door invitation where you're not just not doing anything about it, but you're actively promoting. When I was a police officer, Salt Lake City, I saw so this isn't new. Spencer Cox has just allowed this to grow. I mean, when I was, and feel free to ask questions as I go, but when I was a cop in Salt Lake City, this was a huge problem. I mean, when you'd work just on the west side of town, you'd pull people over, no licencia, but somehow they have not only insurance, but a driving privilege card. That's a huge problem, a driving privilege card. So people that are here, they have these privilege cards to drive, but they're not Americans. They're not Utah citizens. They're not even citizens because they're here illegally.
Okay.
Once we started to make these, did you have a question on that?
Well, yeah, because Cox says we are not a sanctuary state. But one of the things that makes us a sanctuary state, you're saying, is that they are giving them driving privilege cards. What? Go ahead and say that again. What they're giving them?
Yeah, it's just not a driver's license. It's a privilege. It's a driving privilege card for people that are illegal that are here, and and they can still get insured somehow. So it's all about the money. So basically, it's a call out. Come on, you're fine here. You're fine here. Nothing's going to happen. Tens of thousand. I would say, if I were to guess, 150 to 200,000 illegal aliens in the state of Utah, no problem.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
and that's and I think that's might even be on the low end. I've seen numbers of 80,000, but when we would do drug arrests, when we would be downtown, I would help on the the narcotic units. They do these takedowns. We'd get these really pretty headlines. All of these drug arrests, I would say 9 out of 10 of them are from either Honduras, Mexico, selling all kinds of heroin, cocaine, and these little balloons. We'd make these arrests, and then all of a sudden, they'd come in with ICE and it'd look all good. Those same people, whoop, right back in the state doing the exact same thing. This is after they're deported, right? And sometimes they're not deported. And so this has been happening for a very long time. Spencer Cox recently, within the last couple months, did this really politically driven idea that we're stopping, we're going to help with the border. Do you know how many people that he actually sent to the border?
Wasn't
like
it
how many?
Five?
Like 5 or something like that?
5 National Guards.
Yeah, 4 or 5 people. Like that's like, let's link arms, guys. We're going to stop this one little chunk of people. I mean, it's so gross.
So we had Nick Shirley on the show not too long ago, and he's the one that did the viral video on the street interviews in Salt Lake, interviewing. He even tried to get an interview with the governor himself and went to the Capitol, and his gatekeeper, Mike Maurer, fielded this. And he was the one that actually denied vehemently that we are not a sanctuary state. KSL has run cover. They've done a full PR campaign saying this. But one of the things, Nick, because he not only went to the Capitol, he also went into some of the settlement areas to talk to some of the illegal immigrants, or even ask them how they are here. And they are getting bussed in from places like New York City, straight from the border. And this is a directive coming from higher up. In addition to that, they don't have the ability to work during the day. So what are they even doing here in the state? They're not contributing to the state. But according to York, they have privileges like driving, which is...
Well, they're getting health insurance.
Mm-hmm. Education.
They're getting their food covered. Well, here's a graph I'll put up on the screen. It says that an estimated, and I think this is low, but it says an estimated 137,000 illegal aliens live in Utah. There are roughly 48,000 U.S.-born children do too. So illegal households add up to 54,000 illegal households. The average cost to Utahns is $5,000 per illegal. What are taxpayers supporting? $653 million in education, $98.8 million in police, legal, and corrections. And then what basically, if you add it all up, it's costing us $93.1 million, and what that comes to is $901 annually to each household.
And that's assuming 137,000.
And that's 137, which we're definitely well beyond that. So you got to look in that. We're paying, an average household's paying $1,000 years, $1,000 per year for the aliens. For the illegals. Yeah,
and the only way that we stop this is by closing the border for real. That's the only way we stop it. This is an invasion. Here's the bottom line. So people understand, well, what's the big deal about it? Number one, it's going to crush our economy. Number two, this is an invasion. These are well-funded. These people have orders. I mean, they'll come in at the border and they know exactly where they're going. They're being funded. I've gotten calls. I've gotten messages from people that are just, an Uber driver at the airport, and they're seeing plane loads of people that are coming in to Salt Lake, and at nighttime they're taking them in these white buses, and they're just going. I got a message just down here in St. George that all of a sudden they saw this white bus stop, and about 15 to 20 illegals came out in Washington County and just kind of flooded out and just started to just go out of the van. So this is happening all over the state. And so right now, so you're thinking, well, what's the big deal? This is another tentacle of Marxism. This is another tentacle, because if you can put that much pressure on our system with people that are going to take jobs from, American citizens that are just trying to provide, that's how you break the system. And they've done it. They've done it in Europe, and now they're doing it in America. And the bottom line is this governor's not doing anything, but he's actually inviting this kind of behavior to the state of
It's an
Utah.
enabling.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I appreciate you tying into Marxism, because for Marxism to work, you have to have a huge underbelly. It's always a top down with authoritarian government coming from the top, and a bottom up from the underbelly, the criminals, to overthrow the middle class, because the middle class is the stability of the country. So every time that there's a Marxist revolution, it's the middle class that's wiped out. So in order to do that, you have to develop a huge underbelly of criminals and people who are upset with the status quo, which is why, yes, that open the borders. Not to mention, we know that there are terrorists coming through. And one of the things that ICE mentioned, and all, you can find references to this on our website under resources, but one of the things that the ICE memo said is that 67% of the criminals, including MS-13 gang members, are being released back onto the streets. And I'll add this clip in here from Staggs, who's running for Mitt Romney's seat, Trent Staggs. But the ICE agent actually told them that it's because our policies are so loose, they're actually telling them on the other side of the border, go to Utah, because you will not be deported there.
Friday night, what's happening in Israel? Friday night, we find out that Hamas has been sneaking through the border into Israel. Plants have been sneaking across or being allowed into Israel. And Saturday morning, you have a bunch of people who've crossed the border, plants, who release havoc and absolutely do unthinkable things in Israel to the that is horrific to describe what's happening there. And then to realize that right now in Utah, the state that should be redder than red, we are a sanctuary state. We are allowing, and not only allowing these people in here, but then we are releasing 67% of the people ICE captures, including, right out of their own words, people who could potentially be MS-13 gang members. Yeah. We're releasing them back onto the streets. Are we not setting ourselves up for exactly what Israel dealt with?
Trojan horse. Mayor, leading into what Jason's talking about, the simple fact that we have these military-age fighting men. I've seen all kinds of reports and reporters down there at the border talking to all these border agents, bringing people across. These aren't Spanish guys. They're coming from Syria. They're coming from Senegal. They're coming from all over East Africa. And a lot of them have said, and then they say, where are you going? Mm-hmm. Florida, Texas, Utah. A lot of them said Utah. And so we've got all these people now.
You?
Americano.
¿A dónde vas?
Georgia.
Gracias. ¿Y usted?
Ecuador.
¿A dónde vas?
Nueva Jersey.
¿Y usted?
Utah.
¿A dónde?
Utah.
¿De dónde?
¿De dónde? De Ecuador.
¿Y usted?
Ecuador.
¿A dónde?
Utah.
Gracias. ¿Y usted?
Ecuador.
¿A dónde?
Utah.
¿Y usted?
Ecuador, Nueva York.
¿Y usted?
Ecuador. Nueva Jersey.
¿Y usted?
De Ecuador a Texas.
¿Y usted?
Cubano.
¿A dónde? ¿A qué estado?
Boom, all of a sudden, all these people coming across the border saying they're coming to Utah.
Well, it's, again, Utah has an easy policy like California does and others. And that's why, and this is a state that they're not looking at, no one's looking into. And again, the corruption in Utah runs deep.
And that was part of the conversation I had with the ICE field director. He said that very thing. He said that the intel they've got on the ground and is that Utah, go to Utah. They're very friendly, and it's because they're not going to deport you. They don't have any policies in place that are cooperating with ICE for these long-term detentions, and so go to Utah.
And there's no room in the jails, there's no room in the jails. That's what people don't understand. Most good women, men and women in law enforcement know this. They know this is a problem. They know there's nothing that we can do about it, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse by the tens of thousands every single month.
And my concern with Cox is, why are you lying about it? This is pattern of lies. Why are you being dishonest? Why do we have these policies? And why is Mike Maurer up there saying anyone who says so is spreading falsehoods?
The big question we have, is Salt Lake City and is Utah a sanctuary state?
It is designated by ICE as a sanctuary state.
Not illegal, but I have papers, but yes.
But we are not a sanctuary state, and people who spread that are spreading falsehoods.
Do you feel like you're getting placed behind the people that are crossing in illegally?
Absolutely.
Today we are in the state of Utah. It is reported that Salt Lake City is a sanctuary city. However, there are also other reports that are saying it is not a sanctuary city. However, we have met many migrants that are saying they are coming here to Utah. So Brooker T. Jones, what's going on here in Salt Lake City?
In Salt Lake City, we're here right now because we have met people literally at the border and at the airport that say they are coming to Salt Lake City. We've also done a lot of research, and some articles say, yeah, Salt Lake's a sanctuary city. Others say, no, it is absolutely not a sanctuary city. But the other day I was flying on the airplane, and about 3/4 of that airplane was full of migrants coming into Salt Lake. So we want to see, we need to really get down to the bottom of it as to if this is a sanctuary city or not, because clearly migrants are coming.
The governor of Utah, Governor Cox, has claimed that this is not a sanctuary city. However, other reports and ICE agents have said that it is a sanctuary city. So today we're going to be asking locals and be talking to people here inside the Capitol and finding the migrants here inside Salt Lake City to figure out if Salt Lake City really is the secret sanctuary city of America. A sanctuary city is a place where local governments limit the access of federal immigration authorities in order to protect undocumented immigrants living in the city. For example, New York City and Chicago cannot deport illegal immigrants living in their cities because they are a sanctuary city. Utah was classified as a sanctuary state by U.S. immigration because ICE was not allowed to detain illegal immigrants for more than 72 hours, and the state also gives benefits to undocumented immigrants such as driving privilege cards, medical insurance, in-state college tuition, and occupational licensing. We're going into the Capitol right now to go see if we can find some state representative, governor, whoever it may be. I walked into the Capitol and met this man who works with the governor, and this is what he said when I asked him the question. With all the migrants that are coming in here, they said that Salt Lake City is a sanctuary city.
Yeah, absolutely not. They've been spreading that lie, and it's just simply not the case. Utah's not a sanctuary state. There was an article in yesterday's Deseret News that highlighted that and pointed that out. So we're certainly not a sanctuary state. We're one that has accepted legal immigrants over time, but we are not a sanctuary state. And people who spread that are spreading falsehoods.
I mean, it's like, and why won't the Salt Lake Trib and Deseret News, when we had 2 people raped, why won't our mainstream media acknowledge they were raped by illegals, or why do they not even report on it at all? That's one of my concerns. Anyways, any other thoughts on or points on the sanctuary state?
This goes
I'll
back.
just add in, just
Michelle.
in Washington County alone, we've had a 600% increase in illegal narcotics being repossessed just in the last couple of years, really since Biden took office. So, and much of that we know is coming through, they're shipping from China to Mexico, and it's being funneled in through Mexico up I-15. So, that alone is a reason to secure our border.
Right.
I have one going back to the Trump era during Trump's administration when he had his what they called controversial immigration policy. Cox was quoted saying, "I want to punch someone. He can't sleep tonight. I know I shouldn't tweet, but I'm angry and sad. I hate what we've become. My wife wants to go and hold babies and read to lonely, scared, sad kids." He tweeted that morning, "I want to punch someone. Political tribism is stupid. It sucks and it's dangerous. We're all part of the problem." This is in regards to Trump's immigration policy about deporting illegals.
Same.
I mean, it's the pattern. And you'll see a pattern with his behavior of like wanting to be very, very aggressive and actually use violence, which is very strange for a governor to say something like that.
Yeah, especially someone who touts disagree better.
I think this was when he was still a lieutenant governor, but still.
So anything else on sanctuary state you want to bring up? No? So, Michelle, you had an interesting thing you want to bring up about housing. Share your thoughts on housing and why that's a concern.
Yeah, so speaking of supporting the free market and not supporting socialism and Marxism, our governor has declared that there is a housing crisis, an exponential crisis, he says, and therefore we need government to come in with government solutions, he claims, to fix this crisis. So I wish someone would hand Governor Cox a book by Thomas Sowell, maybe just Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell would be a really great read for him, because I hate to break it to y'all, but government does not come in and solve these issues. It's the free market. And so Governor Cox came down here to Washington County just this last week. I'm on the St. George City Council, and he's given municipalities an ultimatum that we need to fix this housing crisis. We have 1 year, essentially, was the threat, to help fix this crisis, or else the state might have to come down and do something about it. And now I've talked to several other elected officials now to try to grasp, like, what does he really mean by that? I know he's really proud of the 74 bills that just got signed in through the legislature this last session to, quote, solve the housing crisis. They've set aside a $300 million pool of money, essentially, through the state treasury. So, in effect, it is taxpayer dollars, but they've set this aside to be used for certain developers. Now, it'll be interesting which developers actually get to use the funds and which don't. But then they have to go build, quote, affordable homes, which they're deeming means around $300,000 or less. And again, what happens, what are the repercussions when government comes in and places price controls? What are the ripple effects on the rest of the economy when government decides they know best and how to solve this issue? So I got to thinking, well, I feel like I have heard this exact same philosophy from someone else. Oh yeah, Gavin Newsom from California. I can guarantee you that's probably, maybe, I don't know, where Spencer got the idea. I think they're on that, Governors Association together. So maybe they've been throwing around some ideas together on how to solve the housing crisis. So it's really interesting that the same approach of a Democratic governor in California, that's the approach our supposedly Republican governor is very proud of here in the state of Utah. So I don't know about you guys, but to me, I have a major issue with a Republican governor who claims to value the free market implementing these type of approaches. Now, if he were to come in and say, hey guys, let's cut government red tape. Let's let the free market do what it does best and expedite some of these processes so they can build more homes at less cost. Great. Let the free market do that. But that's not what he's doing.
And I love it.
Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
No, I love that you bring that up because, again, it's what ideology does he align with? Is he align with the principles of our founding fathers of the free market, or does he align with the state is the final arbitrator of rights and property? And I think it's clear. In fact, do you have any thoughts on that, Eric? Before we jump, because I want to jump. I actually want to switch gears when we're done with this and have you hit the consolidation of power because it's kind of aligned with that.
Well, it's also aligned with the immigration that we just spoke about. They're creating the problem so they can create the solution. And the immigration, the influx of people, I've even heard it's as much as 300,000 last year. So of course there's going to be a housing crisis. Forget about affordable. It's a supply and demand issue. Same issue with transportation in this state. You create the problem, you create the solution. And the other nefarious agenda on the other side of this is high density housing and what that leads to. Smart cities.
Right. I'd like to jump into Eric, his consolidation of power and destroying the caucus. I feel like that's very aligned with the way he governs. Again, because is he governing like our founding fathers, where the government stays out of the way and allows the free market and allows a Republican form of government, a representative form of government, or is he moving towards more of a tyrannical? What are your thoughts on that, Eric?
Well, it's clear to see this state, the way that it was founded was actually very inspired, in my opinion. The way that the caucus system, like what an inspiring pattern. I mean, you go back to the book of Exodus. I think it's like Exodus, I don't know, I had it written down somewhere. I think it's Exodus 18:21. It talks, so Moses was having all these issues with all the people coming to him directly, right? So he went to Jethro, they prayed about it, and they set up in groups of 10s, in leader, groups of 50s leader, groups of 100 leader, groups of thousands leader. So there was an elected leader that was chosen to go and represent that group of people. That's how Utah was structured. And so as the establishment started to go left, 20 years ago, those people that were the delegates, the ones that were actually paying attention to what's happening in the state, they were starting to call them out. And they did not like it. So what did they do? Well, they introduced SB 54, which was a pathway for these politicians that weren't getting selected to stay on the ballot with money and signatures. And so now we're to the point where it's gotten so bad where the Republicans, the rhinos, they have made it basically to where you are an extremist if you're booing. I mean, literally, these are the words. You are an extremist. You've got KSL. You've got, or Deseret News? Which one of the? I think it was D News. I mean, 4 different articles, boom, boom, right in a row. That the caucus system. These are all these extremists that are now booing, simply booing for them. So this is a move to completely crush the voice of the people, because for the consolidation of power, so that they can have the AG spot, so that they can have, the state board, right?
So before we jump into appointing, I want to jump back on the SB 54, because when our founding fathers first created the country, their concern was they actually did not want a democracy. They wanted a representative form of government. And they actually initially said people shouldn't be able to vote unless they're landowners. Their biggest concern was the herd mentality, people uneducated, people just being bought, basically being able to be bribed, kind of like what's happening here at the border. Open up the borders and allow, basically say, hey, come and we'll give you this, we'll give you that, as long as you vote for us. That was their big concern. And like you said, Utah was founded, and as was this Constitution, our country, on a representative form of government. And the beautiful thing about caucus is it allows grassroots to clean house. It allows grassroots, if the people are concerned, they can go nominate someone in the neighborhood who stands and who's fed up with what Cox or what Romney's doing, and who will go and stand against them. But the challenge is SB 54 basically said, hey, that's, and once Mike Lee got in, that was when SB 54 was put in, because Mike Lee was a grassroots, became into grassroots and shut down the system. So the SB 54 says we need to have a new system that says, hey, regardless of whether the party agrees with these people, regardless of if they're aligned with the party platform, we want our people to be able to get onto the ballot and we're going to make a way they do it. All they have to do is buy signatures. And so I think that's important to bring that up, because I don't think a lot of our listeners understand the caucus system versus signatures. And signatures, what that does is it crushes the voice of the grassroots.
Yeah, and it's just so obvious, like the direction that they're taking, and then they pretend like, oh, just take it to the Republicans of Utah. Most people in the state of Utah have no idea what's happening. Most people will just continue to vote as they see, oh, well, he's a nice guy. I mean, he's got a Disagree Better campaign going on. I saw he works well with the governor from Colorado. He was on a TED Talk. He's using, I don't know if you're seeing these billboards of Spencer Cox having the Manti Temple behind him. I don't know if you saw that. Yeah. Using little slogans, using phrases like, I know Michelle's going to get into this about, how to get people vaxxed using the church. So most Republicans, or registered Republicans, they're just going to go along with the flow. Like when we were at convention, my older sister, we were both sitting next to each other, and somebody came up to her and just said, hey, I can tell you're not going to vote for Cox. Why? And my older sister, Kate, she's like, let me ask you, why are you voting for him? And he didn't know what to say. He's like, you know what? You kind of got me there. I don't know. Everybody else is. Everybody else is. So I guess I'm going to too. And then she kind of gave him a schooling on what's actually happening. And once people see it, they're just like, oh my gosh, how did this happen to the state of Utah?
And it also helps when you have the media in your back pocket to run PR for you. I mean, we were talking about the convention where he got booed, and the public perception there is immediately after that, what Cox said was you got a bunch of extremists in the caucus system. And just today, KSL was running cover for Cox in this article, where basically saying that he loves the convention system. Governor Cox supports the caucus system, even after being booed at convention. So it's whatever the media is putting out is just what people digest. And that's why it's important what Eric, Michelle, and we're doing here, because that's the only way to fight public perception when you're getting your information from the local news.
Eric, can you play that UVU piece? Do you have that speech, the talk he gave at UVU about the convention?
We can play.
If not, I'll add it in afterwards. If not, I'll add it in afterwards.
Great news for the state of Utah. Phil Lyman absolutely obliterates Spencer Cox in the GOP state convention. And in what was supposed to be a compelling speech for people to get behind him, Spencer Cox decides to go after the constituents because a few people booed him and disagreed with him the way that Spencer didn't like to be disagreed with.
I am so proud to be welcomed here today, the same way you have welcomed lots of Republican governors over the years. Governor Herbert got booed here and lost by 10 points, but won by 40 points in a Republican primary. You booed Orrin Hatch, you booed Norman Bacon.
And why is Governor Cox bringing the LDS Church into this equation?
You even booed the president of the General Relief Society of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in 2000. And why are we booing today? Maybe you're upset that I signed the largest tax cut in Utah history. Maybe you hate that I signed constitutional carry. Or maybe it's something much more simple. Maybe you just hate that I don't hate enough.
So this is a translation for those that don't speak disagree better passive-aggressive political language. It doesn't matter what you think. I'm going to win anyways.
Governor Herbert got booed here and lost by 10 points, but won by 40 points in a Republican primary.
I get the signatures. I own the media. Your voice doesn't matter. And if you think this was just an off-the-cuff reaction to a bunch of people booing him, oh no. This is how he feels about your voice being heard.
Delegates. Who's most likely to show up on a random Tuesday in March to meetings that routinely last 3 or 4 hours and where people argue incessantly about Robert's Rules of Orders and the agenda and they fight about stuff? Who's most likely to love that crap? Okay? All right. Here it is. People who are really, really, really passionate. Okay? And maybe some people who are extremists.
And maybe some people who are extremists.
And then, Eric, tell me your thoughts on that speech. What stuck out to you there?
My thoughts are this is how he feels. This is how he's felt. I mean, during the convention, this all of a sudden audible speech that he said, like, oh, I wasn't planning on this, which he was planning on this exact speech. He used the words extremist at UVU prior to, so he knew this is how he felt. I mean, he's saying that you guys booed the Relief Society president of Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The real story of that is that she was taking up too much time and they were trying, hey, move on to the next. It wasn't that they were booing her. This was 20 years ago. So you can tell that he doesn't like the convention. He doesn't like to be disagreed with. He doesn't like anybody that calls him out for his stuff. And he thinks that you're an extremist.
What's your thoughts on that, Michelle?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that UVU clip was before, I believe, he was even lieutenant governor. So this isn't a coincidence that he's now in his speech at convention saying, I'm really concerned about the convention. Some people think that it's just a minority of extremists here. Yeah, some people, including you, Spencer Cox, because you've admitted that. They do not like the convention system because it is a way where the grassroots, as you've mentioned, can come together and truly elect the most grassroots conservative candidate. Is it perfect? No, but it's better than the alternative of people just buying their way onto the ballot and big money ruling the day.
I think a perfect example is Staggs. Staggs has, did a great job spending his time investing in the delegates, the people chosen by the people to represent them.
Overwhelmingly.
He overwhelmingly won, and now because of money and because of signatures, he's competing against John Curtis, who has got millions. And this show's not about Curtis, but I mean, you talk about someone who's pathological, with what he says he believes versus how he actually votes. And so that's the sad thing. You get rid of convention, and now all you have is the pathological people that are bankrolling this.
And you're finding similar margins in this race with Cox and Lyman. You're finding that we wouldn't be in this position if Cox wasn't gathering signatures, and the same thing with the Senate candidates. And I love the way he flips it. At the end of his speech, he said, you just hate that I don't hate enough. So, I mean, obviously that's not what everyone's issue with Cox is. It's more around everything that we're covering in this show. But then they try to pander to the conservative base that he says, I don't even mind the booing, but this canceling is something new. So it's an interesting shifting narrative that he uses to defend his, quote, off-the-cuff speech that I find interesting.
You know, and the other thing too is so he's trying to destroy the caucus system, which I find again massive. I think the founding fathers would be rolling over in their graves. But the other thing I think that they would be very upset about is we have a representative form of government, and again, it's those same. He talks about it in that UVU speech. A few people making decisions for the rest of us. Isn't that what our representative form of government are? Our state reps and senators. A few people making decisions for the rest. So is that all? Should we get rid of that too? I mean, that's what's scary, that type of thinking. And when you look at what he's doing with the appointments, right? The first thing that they did, and it wasn't him, but we did in the state of Utah, is one of the most important roles is a state, a secretary of state. A secretary of state, their role is to oversee elections. that was created to be something that was chosen by the voice of the people and removed by the voice of the people. Well, what did they do in Utah? They removed the Secretary of State and made an appointment from the governor where the governor could oversee a lieutenant governor who oversees the elections. The fact that Spencer Cox was overseeing his own elections when he ran for governor, I don't know why people in Utah don't see the red flags with that his lieutenant governor oversees elections. What else did he try to appoint, Eric?
Well, and I think it's important too. Well, the AG, the state school board, he was saying basically these need to be all appointed positions so we can get all these liberals in there with the state school board. The list goes on and on of how much power these people want.
Yeah, and another thing too with his consolidation of power that's concerning is he refuses to talk to constituents. You saw, when he shows up for at the convention, he shows up with full security right before his speech, and then right after full security leaves, he will not let anyone talk to him. Is that a public servant? Again, just things I'm concerned about. All right, let's jump back.
Well, it seems like he needs the security. It seems like the security needs to be for the constituents like yourself. Because the only time I ever see people that get kind of bullied is by this guy. And so maybe the security is so that he doesn't lose his, he doesn't lose it on somebody that, disagreed better with him.
Okay. Protocol. You need to get out. So we just tried to ask Governor Cox a question, and you see what happened here is they're laying hands on us. They're trying to physically remove us. And he just went out a back secure door, and of course they don't want him to answer questions about. Here, let's catch him out here. Let's run. Is there a specific reason he kind of avoids interviews that you guys know of?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. And so we just verify you're not supposed to be back here in the secured area, so we need to either go that way to the gatehouse or back into where you're supposed to be.
Okay,
so this is a secure area.
There's no restricted signs or trespassing signs.
The gates in the closed gates.
Okay.
And you busted through the door over here to the convention.
We just left the exit.
Okay, so
it says exit over there.
Okay, go try to get back in without doors. So let's have you either try to get back in with your friends or at the gate.
Yeah, we'll head back in.
This is a secure area.
Okay, sweet.
So we just verified that with inside.
Why doesn't Governor Cox answer questions?
Ask Governor Cox.
I tried. Try to schedule official ones with him. He doesn't do it.
You need to leave the restricted area. You've been told we're going to have the people of the event now come and escort you from the premise.
Okay, perfect.
So that's up to you guys.
No, that's great. They can come and escort us. Okay. We'll comply with them. They can just escort us off. Thank you, guys. We are now going to be escorted off the premises. They say this is a secured area, which it is not. There's no posted, trespassing signs, no restriction signs. They told us that they're going to go in and get the event staff to now escort us out of the area. The governor is behind here, literally cowering and hiding in his car right now because he is afraid to answer simple questions that Americans and Utahns want to know about Utah being a sanctuary state. And not just a sanctuary state, but a secret sanctuary state, busing and flying illegal immigrants in, not just from Texas, from Florida, from Chicago, New York, pretty much anywhere you can possibly think of. This is happening here in Utah. Behind the scenes, It's right out in the open, though, if you actually open your eyes and look. Take a walk through the airport. You got the governor hiding here right now behind me, and we're about to be kicked out, so lovely. I was just trying to ask him some questions, but of course he didn't.
He's not going to answer for you.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to schedule official interviews with him, and nothing seemed to work. But
he's not going to.
And I told him, I'd happily comply.
You want me to walk you back in?
Yeah, that'd be great. All right. Thank you, guys. Yeah. Tell Governor Cox I say hello.
Sure.
He's not a very big fan of me, kind of showing how Utah's a sanctuary state, but he continues to deny it. So why do you guys think that is?
Okay.
I don't work for the government.
I know you know. You're the sheriff. It's Sheriff Smith, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, Taylor Hanson, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Okay. I mean, this kind of comes out of nowhere, so wherever the next one falls.
About him being, I think that's another huge thing is who's
we
funding this guy? Where's his money come from?
And I think we need to bring up the point really quick that people don't realize is that he calls all of these people that are the extreme conspiracy theorists, like, these people that are like trying to maintain our freedom and liberty. You guys are the conspiracy theorists. But yet he took over $500,000 of Utah tax-paying money to up his security at his private property, not even at the governor's mansion. This is his house. What county is he in? Like Sanpete County?
Yeah.
I mean, and we just kind of missed that one. Like, who's the conspiracy theorist?
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, let's hit bullying, because that's kind of on the same lines.
Yeah, I think this is a really important one that people need to realize, because he is really, really good at using people. There's this woman named S.C. Plore that during that, I think it was the night of the inauguration, she confronted him about masks. She confronted him about COVID. This is all the time where he's shaming missionary families for getting too close together. He's tweeting out, I don't know if you remember that. But all of a sudden she's like, Spencer Cox. He comes walking up to her, places his hand on her shoulder. Did you ever see this video?
Is it something we can play?
Oh yeah, we can play it right now. Places his hand on her shoulder and says, I love you. I'm very, very passive aggressive, right? Like very she's like, stop touching me, don't touch me. And this is during COVID, right? So he's got the mask on, but yet he's touching her because she's calling him out. Same thing that happened to you, Jason. Like, you went up to him. You are an investigative citizen journalist, and you ask him simply about smart cities. He loses it. I mean, loses it to the point where if you see like really close, I don't know if you can do a screenshot of his chief of staff, Mike Maurer, where he's looking like, oh my gosh, like, am I going to have to intervene on what Spencer's doing to Jason Preston?
Tell me your thoughts on the smart cities you guys are working on. What smart cities? Smart city. We gotta go.
I don't know what smart city.
Come join us for Sandbag one at the point in the mountain.
It's not a smart city. I don't know what you're talking about. No. We're going there. Look. I know what you're saying, dude. I don't know what you're talking about. You don't know? There's no such thing as a smart city.
You have it on the
So
website.
stop making up stuff. Why do you look mad? You're really good at this. You make up shit, and then you try to make us
on your own website. How about
I have a whole website about this?
Why do you have a conversation about it?
Because you don't like to have real conversations, man.
I'm right here asking
Yeah.
for
And I just
why
told
don't you come on?
I just told you that there's no such thing as a smart city. We're developing a new piece of land for the state. Okay, that's what we're doing. They have open meetings. You're welcome to show up and talk to them. It's an independent commission. There's all kinds of people working on it, all kinds of elected officials. There's
I know there are.
you like to make up these conspiracies. It's great for you. I know it's good for your brand. I hope it works for you, but you don't get to make up shit
Well, guess
about
what?
it. Okay,
You and
So
what
good
you're
luck,
doing will
okay?
make the reform.
But I mean, can you imagine if you would have put your fist on Spencer Cox's chest? What would have happened to you?
Yeah, I mean,
I'll be
I've been
all
arrested. I mean, I think the thing that really is, sad is for someone who he's a governor, and what was I expecting? When I went up and asked the governor his opinion about smart cities, I was expecting a dialogue. wasn't expecting him to get up in my face and to outwardly just lie. I mean, I would think he would at least say, hey, it's not what you think it is. It's I wasn't expecting him to lose his cool like that. And I think one of the things that really bothered me, actually, it wasn't just how he acted in my face and calling me out, but then he gets the Salt Lake Tribune and they write a hit piece about me, and the governor's office says that I'm a QAnon, and it makes up all these lies. Made up a complete hit piece on me. I mean, what kind of, to me, that's like, how concerning is that when a citizen asks their public servant about a question politely, professionally, and the public servant overreacts, gets in their face, lays their hands on him, and then the media should have gone after him. Like, why did he do that? But then the governor uses the media to attack the citizen.
Yeah, and earlier we were talking about the lies of Spencer Cox, but it goes back to what you actually confronted him about: smart cities and the World Economic Forum. So you want to talk about being caught in a lie. Cox is currently serving as the chairman of the National Governors Association. He was appointed by and working directly with Biden, the UN, the World Economic Forum. But this is someone who says he has no idea what the World Economic Forum
never heard
is.
Of it.
So, caught in blatant lies. He's so insulated now, no one will ever have the ability to go up to him and talk again, because if he's caught in a lie, he will just get emotional, he will puff up, and he will be completely protected now from that ever happening again.
Yeah, I find it very interesting.
Yeah, and then another bully is the BYU. The mentally challenged kid that gets kicked out of the BYU for a fake story, by the way, a Jesse Smollett type story. That it didn't even happen. Apparently the kid said, "You're gonna hit it in the net." That's all the kid said. And so, the black volleyball player and her family make up this story. BYU goes on this national apology tour. Spencer Cox, before doing any of his investigation, tweets out that this kid's a racist a-hole. Bullies the other guy at the Jazz who's saying, hey, there's some really, kind of racist policies that the Utah Jazz are doing, where they're not giving scholarships to white kids. They're only giving scholarships to minority kids, but not white kids. And Spencer Cox totally agrees with it and says, yeah, there's a lot of injustices that we need to make up. So let's fight racism with more racism. That's basically what he said. And so those are just a few examples.
How about, wear the damn mask? His whole, I don't care what he says. I don't care. Just wear the damn mask.
Yeah, we should get into that, Michelle. We should get into how manipulative that was, using the church, using the prophet. I have a video of him, right here. If you guys want to watch this really quick, let me just switch this and so you can watch this really quick of what he said. Let me make this bigger. Hold on a second, guys. Hold on. Let me open this up. Kind of grainy, but
this is, as I've said many times, a pandemic of the unvaccinated. It's hard. Someone wiser than me said that one of the problems with people who believe conspiracy theories is it's not just enough to stop believing the conspiracy theory, but often it takes you away from your community, the people around you that believe the same way that you do. We love you. We care about you. I promise I'm not part of some grand conspiracy theory. If you don't believe me, if you're if you're a religious person, if you're a Catholic, listen to the Pope, who says that this is a moral imperative for everyone to get vaccinated. If you're a Latter-day Saint, listen to the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who said that this is not just a godsend, but a literal godsend, literally sent from God to bless us. If politics is your religion, then believe Donald Trump, who was so instrumental in getting this vaccine to us, who got the vaccine himself, and who's encouraged others to get the vaccine.
I mean, this is like manipulation to the next level, right? I mean, I promise I'm not how about, he brought up religion and he brings up spirituality. Well, why don't we open the scriptures? Most of the viewers here believe in the Book of Mormon. Well, let's look how many times it says secret combinations. Let's look at how many times it says that the government does these things. Now, do I think that Spencer Cox knew that this was ended up being a death, that this was going to actually take the lives of millions of people. I don't know. I don't think he knew that, but he was definitely used in this conspiracy of what has been happening to tens of thousands of just Utahns that are either dying. There's certain words I don't want to use for your algorithm for this, but yes, definitely part of the conspiracy.
Michelle.
Yeah, it's interesting that I don't hear anything in his comments in there about maybe talk to your own personal trusted healthcare professional. I don't think he has a medical degree that I'm aware of, or how about maybe follow Jesus Christ and get your own revelation about what to do for yourself, right? And actually that same press conference, and maybe we can add this one in too, is Deidre at that same press conference saying that both her and Governor Cox support businesses mandating this, onto their employees. That is unconscionable. And as a healthcare professional myself, I'm a board certified family nurse practitioner, background of a decade in emergency medicine, and now own a private clinic. During this time, I was pregnant with my youngest child, running my business, working in the emergency department. So of course, I'm going to do everything I can to research how to keep me, my baby, my family, those around me safe. And I can tell you, there was not even an inch of the scientific evidence to support mandating the onto our children's faces. And that's what really launched me getting involved politically, because I was seeing Governor Spencer Cox being an advocate of pushing this onto children when we actually have studies, which I sent to his office, by the way, several studies showing that we actually should not be doing this on our children of all people. And so actually we found out now, because I thought it was really bizarre. I don't know if you guys remember. It's interesting how short people's memories seem to be about all of this, but there was a mandate on everyone, if you recall, throughout the state, even though they're trying to deny that now. That's factual. There was a mandate. And then it was lifted, but they kept it still mandated in all of the schools here in Utah, even after it was lifted on adults. And I thought that was very bizarre at the time. I was talking to every entity I could think of to figure out why this is. Our own local school board here even talked about suing the governor's office because a lot of them didn't agree with what was going on with our kids in schools being mandated. And, come to find out, there was a lot of federal grant money that was tied to ensuring that they were doing this on our kids in schools. Governor Cox literally sold our children out, the health and well-being of our children, for federal money. And I want to know where all of that money went. I would love to see where the millions, in fact, I've heard it's close to $1 billion now, and people who have been really digging in and researching. So that alone should be a reason why anyone who cares about children would never, ever put this guy into a position of authority again, because him and Deidre, they have proven what they will do when in a position of being able to enforce tyrannical mandates. Same thing with that video that Eric just showed with the injection. It's now been shown, and I can link several studies here in the show notes if you would like, of the harms that have been associated now with the injection. There's been more reports to VAERS, the Vaccine Adverse Event site, regarding this particular shot than every single other shot combined in the history. We now have evidence of cardiomyopathy, pericarditis, encephalitis, you name it. There has been so many adverse health events associated with this. And again, this is actually coming from someone who I don't consider myself anti-vax. I consider myself very pro-sound science. And the fact that we had a governor using propaganda to shame and manipulate people into feeling like they had to get this. I actually lost my position in the emergency department because I was nursing my baby. There had been 0 studies done on nursing women in regards to this shot to show that it was actually safe. I had already had the infection, and there had been some evidence actually showing that if you have prior infection, there were increased harms and clotting associated with getting the shot. Yet Governor Cox and Deidre thought that that was appropriate, and they wholeheartedly endorsed these businesses forcing and mandating this on their employees to the point of making it so people could not provide for their families if they didn't fall in line. And that is disgusting.
And I'm so glad you brought all that up, Michelle, because I was actually just pulling up, I guess this was a press release from April 2020, which I guess he was still a lieutenant governor at that point. So this predates even him and his governor capacity when he rolled out the Mask for Every Utah initiative. And this was, I quote from it, "As we transition to mandate to moderate risk, we need people to wear masks in public. Today, we are announcing a Mask for Every Utah initiative. Funding for this program comes from the CARES Act, and the program is designed to get masks into the hands of everyone, especially those who do not have access to them. They are being made by Utah manufacturing companies. This is a one-time program to create 2 million masks. Remember, a mask is for you to protect those around you. COVID spreads through droplets, and even a cloth mask significantly stops the spread of droplets. Be part of the team," unquote. And then, of course, it shows where you can order the masks. So not only is that not scientifically backed, but it just shows how they use propaganda even before he became governor of the state to manipulate the trusting population.
Well, how about where he compared
absolutely.
How about where he compared it to Moses' staff? Do one of you guys want to bring that up?
Well, it was, he's saying, hey, I've never seen a modern day parallel before. Hold on, what? Like, you're going around using the church, using scriptures, and you've never seen a modern day parallel? Well, what about when they were all worshiping false gods and they started dying because they were worshiping false gods and not turning to Christ himself? Like, how about that for a parallel? And so he uses the heart and soul of what our state should be in the most manipulative ways. Remember, like, the whole, hey, I'm asking everybody to pray for rain. And then when that happened and all of a sudden there was some rain and it was like, whoa, I asked everybody to pray. Then he has the church, the local leaders of the church across the state of Utah, send out a letter that basically said, hey, remember I asked everybody to pray? Now we need to have a gratitude because of Spencer, because he asked everybody to pray, we got rain. And now here's another letter in church that he reads that we're all good. And we need to now thank God because of it. Yeah. It is so gross.
And I mean,
he signed a COVID-19 vaccine executive order, which I find really interesting. And of course, we've seen the propaganda and him pushing this everywhere. And he's also received campaign donation from Pfizer. Interesting.
Well, and that's not even this could be an entire separate, show on its own, is how much money was coming in for testing, where that money went to these no bids. You're supposed to have state, these bids for these contracts, and they just went to these companies that made millions and multi-millions, maybe even to the $1 billion for all this COVID testing. Where did all that money go? Who got rich on that?
We actually have a show that's going to be released right after this that we do with Wayne, the old buzzard, where he breaks down where all that money came from and how much. Actually, you'll want to watch it because how much money went to Cox's family's business will blow people's mind. So what else? What else sticks out to you on what happened during 2020 with the masking and the jab, Michelle, or anyone? Any thoughts on that?
I could just take you for a walk down memory lane really quickly on what was signed. First, you had signed the state of emergency order with Governor Herbert in 2020. The entire state now under a mask mandate. That was the first thing. And then the second thing, just in November of that year, Casual social gatherings are only allowed with people you live with through November of 2020, just up until Thanksgiving. And then third, all school extracurricular activities, sports, and clubs are on hold for the duration of the orders. So anyone who says that we were free during this time goes on. Number 4, college students who either live on campus or attend at least one in-person class per week are required to be tested for COVID weekly. Again, these are all executive orders. Quote, "This is a sacrifice for all of us, but if we make it, it will make all the difference for our overworked healthcare workers who desperately need our help." End quote.
By the way, healthcare workers, we were getting called off. I remember seeing on the news about how the hospitals were overflowing. Meanwhile, I was actually losing hours and getting called off because there wasn't enough to do. And then when our normal busy winter season came, because every winter, that's the busy season, everybody in healthcare knows that, it was this, oh my gosh, we're so busy, we're so crazy, everyone needs to go get the shot, and it's because you're having dinner with grandma and not wearing your mask, and we're going to shame everyone. And so I actually asked the facility I was working at, I said, I want to see the data of where we compared this winter to every other winter season. I never was provided with that data, but I can tell you from working there for 6 seasons in a row, it wasn't really much different from every other year.
Yeah.
Nurses still had time to film TikToks dancing in the hallways during that busy time too.
Well, let's talk about the LGBTQ issue, because I'm going to put a graph up here on the screen that shows. Have you guys seen this graph? It shows Utah having one of the highest shifts in gender dysphoria than any other state in the country. And to me, that's a major red flag. Like, what is going on? And to me, again, and there's the video about like where John Crist comes to Utah and says, "What in the world happened here? Is any other state flown up given the white flag so easy? Like, come and take it." Like, to the progressives.
New definition of "come and take it."
Yeah.
not Malone LaBay, that's for sure.
I like saying I'm from Florida. We could care less about someone's sexuality. That's like not our thing. So it's like, you do what you want to do. But the reality is there's something much more insidious to the LGBTQ movement than just people's personal, sexual preferences. And so that's why I think, again, it goes back to those two ideas. The idea of God versus the idea of our rights coming from God versus the idea of the state being in control of things. And one of the things that you see with the LGBTQ movement is they are very clear when you look into it that they are a Marxist organization. They don't even hide it. And one of the things with LGBTQ, with Black Lives Matter, they have a very clear agenda, which is to decolonize. Do any of you want to kind of talk about what that means, decolonization? Because I think,
go ahead, Michelle. Go ahead.
Oh, well, what I was just going to say on that whole thing is it's interesting how, those of us who are believers anyway, and even if you're not a believer, just the fact that humanity has survived this many generations, we are literally going to evolve ourselves right out of existence if these studies are accurate anyway, of showing now 40% plus of people somewhere identifying on this LGBT spectrum, because guess what's happening? They're mutilating children's bodies. What happens when you mutilate your body? You can't reproduce. What happens when you get on hormone blockers? It affects your ability to reproduce later on. What happens when you're having sex with the same gender? You can't reproduce. So it's really interesting, this push to literally abolish the existence of humanity. You don't have to be a believer to see that that's the shift here going on in society, and to have a governor who is introducing himself to little kids with his he, him, his pronouns is perpetuating this sky-high level of mental health issues that we are seeing in our youth, that were perpetuated by not only his COVID policies, but now his policies related to the trans movement.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting.
And look here, if you guys see this too, like, check this out. Can you guys see this I saw this. I can't remember who shared this, but it's basically a, oh shoot, I don't know if I can pull this over. Can you guys see that? Okay.
We'll get it.
I mean, this
after.
is like
There it is.
stories like trans for Governor Cox, BLM for Governor Cox. Somebody sent this to me.
Well, to me, it aligns with this top down, bottom up, overthrow of the established order of a society. And when you've got in the schools, them teaching these kids, and I've had many parents come to me saying, "Hey, my child's being told that they're bad because they're white, and that they're inherently racist." Well, so the only way to not be either you're oppressed or you're an oppressor, and so the dangerous thing about this ideology is it moves people to say, I don't want to just be a white person or even if it doesn't, or a conservative, because they're the bad ones, they're the oppressors. Therefore, I need to be, I can't change my skin color, but I can change my sexuality. I can be transgender. I can be this, and that way all of a sudden I'm not the oppressor. I'm the oppressed. Now I'm not the person who's the bad guy, and that's the problem. Is when you're doing these drag shows in front of the kids, like we're sexualizing the children, telling them if they're straight that they're an oppressor. You are creating an underbelly of people, and at all of these, when you see the parades, it is pulling down statues. It is decolonization, which decolonization is overthrowing the foundations of this country. It is that the people who colonized were the bad guys. We took this country from the slaves, and it belongs back to them. And you have to overthrow the Constitution. Is basically what it is, and that's what's so concerning about this movement. It has nothing to do with people that are gay. It has to do with what is the dark agenda behind it. The dark agenda behind it is to take this country apart through chaos
and divide people and label them as color. It's crazy. They're the ones that see through the lens of color. They're the ones that see through the lens of sexuality, through the lens of male, female. They're the ones putting the labels on. Therefore, when you're teaching that to the kids and you're teaching that to our youth, that's what we become. Here's one more that's pretty alarming as well that I found. This is when talking about when he vetoed the bill with the transgender stuff, saying that it's okay that these people come and play in sports, using them, saying that they're, well, just watch this.
There's still much that we can do to protect women's sports, and also to send a message to trans kids that there's a place for them and that they belong, and that's really important to me, that they know that. Look, I just these kids they're just trying to stay alive. There's a reason none of them are playing sports, and so I just think there's a better way, and I hope that there will be enough grace in our state to find a better solution. I don't understand all of this. I don't, but I'm trying to understand more. I'm trying to listen and learn, and again, trying to help kids figure out who they are and keep them alive. So
okay, so again, bravo. I think it was a very. I don't know what it is with politicians. It's like the ones that couldn't make it in acting, like that would be a C-class actor. They somehow become these politicians. And so to be able to cry tears on demand, using these people, saying that they just want to stay alive, and then that's going to now pander to the entire group. So basically, if you disagree with this trans movement, you're the hater. If you disagree that they're going to come in and play against women in sports, you're the transphobe.
Yeah, Eric.
So this is just so dangerous.
So what this is an example of subversion, where you take someone's values and you twist them to manipulate them. I mean, an example of that is the mask. If you don't wear a mask, you don't love grandma. and this is where you see like the whole Super Bowl ad about Jesus, this, you know, gingerbread Jesus, this that's what it means to be a Christian. You go in and you know, wash people's feet. And that's subversion. If you love people, then you're okay with letting men compete with women's sports. If you love people, then you should let men come in the women's bathroom, because this is I think when James Lindsay, when he came to Utah. For those of you who don't know who James Lindsay is, you should look him up. We actually did a podcast with him. He's credible. But he says one of the best examples of Utah, or he says, I've never seen a better example of subversion than Utah, a place that had incredible high values, and their values were twisted and used against them. And I think he is a perfect example of subversion. It's this is what it means to be loving. We elevate tolerance. We elevate diversity and equity above truth and honesty. So, and that's what I see when I see this stuff. I see subversion. What do you see, baby?
Well, it's not just LGBT issues. I believe the first thing that Cox actually signed as governor was the Utah Compact on Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, which argued or stated it was unraveling centuries of internalized systematic racism, which requires bold anti-racist policies right now. So
yeah, that was the example with the Jazz, who wanted to exclude white children from being able to participate in the scholarship. Is that not racism in and of itself? I mean,
and isn't that interesting that that's his first executive order he signs, and yet all of a sudden now in an election year, DEI is bad, and he says he has always been about keeping DEI out of the state of Utah. And I saw another video after he vetoed, as Eric mentioned, the bill that would keep men from competing in girls' sports, and he said in the interview, you know, I just really believe in having compassion, and I just have compassion for these people. Well, where's your compassion for the girls and women of Utah? Where's that compassion?
I'd even say the DEI problem was actually created by Cox. I mean, it was right in his roadmap for the first 500 days of the Cox administration's Utah equity, diversity, inclusion, the compact I was just talking about. It's just, this is a problem that he created as part of his platform.
And I can't help see a parallel between, you know, the graph we showed earlier with Utah having one of the highest shifts in gender dysphoria, to also when you look at our stats with mental health, we have a massive problem with mental health. And by fueling and saying, you know what, if you're a boy and you think you're a girl, we're gonna embrace that lie. Again, tyranny is always built on lies. Freedom is built on truth. So if a boy says, you know, I think I'm a girl today, and we have a governor and we have leadership that says, no, you are a girl, and embraces that lie, that leads to mental health issues because the child is literally living a lie. And so, I mean, it's insane. And that's where I have a problem with the governor. He promotes, trans, he promotes men coming into women's bathrooms. And how about the Pride Month?
Governor Spencer Cox may be the only Republican governor in the nation right now to issue a proclamation recognizing LGBTQ Pride Month. At the Salt Lake City and County building,
it's hard. It is hard.
People took turns helping to raise the pride flag.
We're going to celebrate all month long, but help us celebrate this diversity 365 days a year.
It marks the start of Pride Month in Utah.
We welcome you, and we love you.
Governor Spencer Cox also issued a proclamation marking Pride Month, calling on Utahns to be more inclusive and accepting of LGBTQ people.
This should not be controversial. There should be nothing controversial about supporting a group of people in our state who have historically felt marginalized.
Again, we'll talk about a red state. Why is it we're the only red state that is dedicating this? We'll put the graph up here on the screen. Utah is making an official Pride Month of Utah 4 years in a row. Only red state. Again, is this conservative leadership, or is this a progressive masquerading as a conservative?
Yeah, and I think what's happening is people are waking up on both sides, because you see, like, even the left, they're starting to finally realize, oh, this guy this guy's not sincere. And you're seeing the people on, conservatives, they're starting to see who he is. He tries to walk down the middle of the road on all of these issues, and it's finally caught up to him where he's getting hit by both oncoming traffic on both sides because he's not going to pick a lane and do what's right for the state of. I don't know if he knows.
I think he's picked a lane. I think he's very good at what he's doing. It is his role is to push Utah that way. It is to subvert our values and get people to think this is what it means to be Christian. It means we embrace LGBTQ. We fly that flag. We welcome people. And again, yes, we should love everybody. But this movement that is seeking to overthrow our country, that is seeking to destroy the foundation of this country, should be rejected by anybody who believes in the principles of this country.
Yeah, that's right. And if you listen to that video, he's like, we don't know these things. Well, we do, Spencer. You brought up Moses. Well, let's go back a little bit further in the book of Exodus. God created male and female. We do know these things.
Right.
Reason why our youth in the state of Utah are so confused because we have leaders, quote unquote leaders, that don't know who they are.
They get on front of kids and use their pronouns.
Kids, there's no such thing as trans kids. That's not a thing. This new bathroom bill that they just passed that they're praising.
Tell us about the bathroom bill.
That codified. That basically codified what a trans man is in this. So if you have somebody who's gone through a transition, that now has it on their identification, their Utah ID, then you can go into women's bathrooms now. So they championed it as this awesome bill that stopped this thing. No. It went into the hands of the LGBTQ lobby. They changed it up, and it popped out to where it is basically codified a trans man, which is not a thing.
Right. Well, then it goes one step further. If a man is in a woman's bathroom and a woman reports him, if he has made any attempt, and if he just has even one, let's say one nut, right? He had one removed. If someone reports him twice, you misreport. The woman who reports it gets a misdemeanor. I think it's misdemeanor. He gets charged. If she didn't know. So how does she supposed to know? Is this guy has he been attempted surgery? She doesn't know. So, but if she makes a mistake and calls him out twice, she's the one that gets charged. So no, that bill was horrible.
Freedom of speech. The whole thing needs to be repealed and replaced with Bill Lyman's bill, the one that Phil Lyman actually tried to run, and it didn't, and they just looked past it, because we wanted a virtue signal, and so that's a fun one in the state of Utah.
Well, and I think another thing too is you look at, I think one way you can look at people is follow the money, and I think one thing you look at Cox, you can see really quickly. I think there was an article, baby, that talked about where his money comes from and how much money he's gotten from the far left.
Yeah, the Federalists, they spoke about it. He didn't get it from Planned Parenthood, but from some of the same far left donors. He received $50,000 donation from David Cumming and another $50,000 from him. I guess same family, both who are under the same Wyoming address. So this group is previously the board chair for Planned Parenthood. He's also one of the biggest donors and gave almost $400,000 to Democrats. Past political contributions include money to the Utah Democratic Party, and in addition to this, thousands of dollars to Democratic politicians, including President Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton.
So, again, here's the question people should ask. These far left people, what is it they see in Spencer Cox that they're willing to donate $100,000 to him? Same people donating money to Planned Parenthood, donating money to Obama, and are giving money to Spencer. What does that say? I mean, is that a red flag?
Yeah, Spencer Cox seems much more concerned with appeasing groups like Equality Utah, and that's how these bills, by the way, like the bathroom bill, get butchered, is because these legislators and the governor sit down with Equality Utah, and they completely neuter these bills. And in fact, a lot of times they're able to manipulate these bills into actually being beneficial for what Equality Utah's agenda is. And then you get these Republicans over here just like, yay, yay, look how great we are, look what we did, when they've completely gutted the intended purpose of the bill. We experienced that when we tried to run a bill last year to address the inappropriate adult entertainment happening in front of our children. And again, people seem more interested in appeasing Equality Utah. And I have to add, the level of abuse this is on our children, and I don't say that word lightly. Spencer Cox is perpetuating an abusive agenda onto our children. Over 80% of these children who believe, for whatever reason, that they're born into the wrong body as a child, they will change their mind by the time they reach adulthood. The fact that anyone would promote them becoming the opposite gender, and especially taking measures like hormones or surgery to promote that, that is child abuse. And our governor has promoted that.
Well, and you have to look who they're beholden to. I mean, one of the most important things to look at when you're considering who to vote for in any race, in any capacity, is their donor base. And his base and where he's getting money from is just riddled with issues. Not just this gentleman or family from Planned Parenthood, but he's got contributions from Chase Bank, Eccles, Zions Bank, Scott Anderson, the usual suspects, Gail Miller, AT&T, and this goes on and on. Developers behind 15-minute cities, and then of course Big Pharma, Pfizer, Anheuser-Busch. I could go and I can read. We could probably do a whole show just on his donor base, but it is just riddled with corruption.
Well, I think one of the things I want to, we're getting short on time. Anything else? I want to bring up the Fourth Industrial Revolution and digital ID. Anything else you guys want to bring up before I bring up that, though?
Yeah, but as far as the people that are supporting him, I'm seeing reports of fake endorsements that I want to bring up.
Oh, yes, bring that up. That's
really
crazy.
Quick, because this is his tactic. He's very, very tactical when he goes around and gets mayors, county commissioners to these big events that are taxpayer funded, by the way. And all it is just another way for him to pin these people in a corner and then get their endorsements, right? That's all this is. But here's an endorsement that I just saw that's very interesting. Let's see, Stubbs. So is that, I'm trying to think of this person's name. This person's name is Sylvia Stubbs, okay? This was put out apparently or allegedly, whatever you want to say, from the Cox campaign. Stubbs endorses Governor Cox. So Jessica Stubbs, the daughter, this is fake. My mom supports Phil Lyman 100%. We all do. We have known Phil Lyman and his family forever. We support Phil Lyman. And then here's Sylvia. Since becoming a county commissioner, I made a decision not to be in social media. This includes family and friends, just makes it hard for me and them. My reasonings are hard for me to explain here. Today, I'm making one of those exceptions. You may have read in social media something that is not true about my choice for governor. My only choice has always been Phil Lyman. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, this is craziness.
I mean, there's a pattern of lies, right? He gets up at convention, and literally almost everything he said was a lie. You ask him about smart cities, he lies. You ask him about, I think that's, to me, that's a problem. I mean, it's our governor. I mean, this is like, again, it's like, I don't know, like just the lying alone is not that should be a reason to get him out.
It's like Eric said earlier, it's just bad acting. It's just poor actors, and you can't trust anything.
I mean, if you cannot trust, when that's why people hate politicians. That's why we hate, Curtis. Is like these guys are like literally like pathological with their lies. I mean, it's like you watch their campaign ad and it's like literally the exact opposite of how they vote. But the last thing I want to bring up, my concern with him is, Klaus Schwab, for those who know who he is, he's runs the World Economic Forum, and it's Klaus Schwab, it's the World Economic Forum, it's the United Nations, it's these unelected self-appointed leaders that are trying to push us into this new world form of government. The UN has very clearly been doing that, and they spend a lot of time in Utah. In fact, as you guys know, the only place the UN meets in America outside of New York is Utah. But one of the things that that they've talked about is this a new world coming where you'll own nothing and be happy. A new digital fourth industrial revolution where it'll be digital cash. And you see that at the national level, we've passed legislation for digital currency. But one of the big things that the conservatives across the country have been saying has to be stopped and never allowed is digital ID. And the first time that they tried to vote on digital ID, I guess it was a couple of years ago, a ton of us showed up at the Capitol and it got shut down. Well, Cox runs a pilot program and introduces it anyways, and then backdoor gets it legalized. So, here we have digital ID. We asked them about smart cities. Again, it's partly, one of the things for smart cities to become dangerous is digital ID, where everything is digital. We're pushing smart cities. And then you've got, Natalie Goshen, who sits on the Envision Utah, talking about how Utah is going to be the birthplace of the fourth industrial revolution. So to me, it's like, but where's the conversation with the people? Yeah. When they had the Olympics, they put in an untold amount of surveillance. The surveillance going up all over the place. Where's the conversation with people? Where are we having a say in what's happening with this shift in this state? And what I'm not comfortable with, this is why I want to have the conversation with them, is why are we not having a discussion about this stuff? Why are you moving forward with this without having the voice of the people?
Yeah, and there's also One Utah, a World Economic Partner, which began in 2022 under Cox, too, which is another horrible push towards the fourth industrial revolution and globalism.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that or anything else you guys want to bring up before we wrap up?
Yeah, real quick. A lot of this stuff, I know that this is really uncomfortable, especially when you can see how the secret combination has taken over the state of Utah. Don't fear. And the reason why I say that is because this is all prophecy. This is one big spiritual simulation that we are in right now. God is just seeing if you are going to stand up for liberty. He's seeing if you're going to stand up for your God-given eternal right. And as this stuff starts to come down, and as there's going to be more COVID-type things, whether it's, through the global climate hoax, whatever it is, and they keep coming down through digital, whatever it is, don't give up your God-given rights. Don't give them up, because once we're done with this test and we look back, I didn't bow down to that. I didn't bow down to that false God. I didn't bow down to that false God. And so just I don't want to say enjoy it because this stuff is heavy, but just look at it like it's awesome to be alive right now. There is no greater time to be alive since Adam, in my opinion. We are watching the final innings of the greatest war between good and evil that has ever happened right now, and it is an honor to be alive.
Awesome. Michelle, will you give us your closing thoughts?
Yeah, I would just say it's not a coincidence that Governor Cox is the head of the Governors Association, by the way. I think they placed him there on purpose to feed his ego, because then he's more likely to carry out the greater agenda here in Utah, right? And as you guys both have mentioned, it is vital that we as citizens, as God-fearing people, are standing up for our God-given rights. And I know it sounds cliche to say that this is the most important election, but I truly do believe of all the elections going on right now, this particular race is the most important, because we've seen already what Governor Cox will do. We've seen the enforcement of tyrannical mandates and the total disregard for our God-given rights, and most importantly, the disregard for our children, because this is what it's all about. I think this is what we mostly care about, is the future that we are leaving to our children. And as a mother, I could never in good conscience support someone who's not supporting the type of future I would want to see for my kids. So I would just encourage people to look past the smoke and mirrors. Don't forget about what we all experienced these last 4 years almost now. And don't be afraid to be a voice. It's not a coincidence that we are all here, that we are all born at this particular time in history. And like Eric, I actually have a lot of hope because I know light prevails in the end. I know we are standing on the right side of this, but it's also our duty to stand up and do something about it. And so I appreciate you guys for having this platform, sharing light, sharing truth, and everyone listening. Do what you can do, what you feel called and led to do, because I do believe we can have a prosperous Utah here with our children.
I love it. Alexia?
No, and we're so thankful for both of you for joining us today, and I'll try to be even half as eloquent as Michelle and Eric, but I think you're absolutely right. I think what we've lived through, especially in this state and as a nation, these last 4+ years since COVID has been a constant test, whether it was a test of the pandemic and living through that, or a test of all the shifts politically. And I think now what we're facing is a test of discernment. If we have the ability to see truth amongst all of the lies, whether it's the lies of the media or the lies of our politicians. So I think it's very courageous to be this dissenting voice. And that's why I love and respect you guys, because you are that dissenting voice that I think we need to look to. So to our listeners and our viewers, your supporters, ours, get this out. You know, I think there are a lot of people that are going into this election season looking for truth. And it's more than just tell me who to vote for. It's why, you know, and I think asking the why is always important. So the more information you can assemble real truth, the more that we can set up our state to take back control and really have a voice of authority in the state with the correct people elected. And we can get the right people elected if we can share this type of information.
Love it. You know, Alexander Tocqueville said, in a democracy, you get the government you deserve. And I look at Utah and I look at how we're so fast spiraling out of control. And the neat thing is, I'm excited because a lot of people are waking up. So many people are starting to wake up. And the beautiful thing is, we could not ask for a better way to wake people up than Spencer Cox. I think there's so much here about him that is clear. He is not aligned with the principles of this country. Get involved. You know, help us expose this guy. Help people see who he is. Help us get billboards out there that show him toasting with Biden. The other thing too is, what a time to be involved and to actually get involved. Get involved with the campaign. Get involved with Phil Lyman. Honestly, we all know Phil personally, and I will tell you this: before he ever ran for governor, we trusted that guy. He was one of two people that had the courage in 2021 to stand up and talk about election integrity in this state. The other one was Steve Christiansen, and he was threatened. His wife was threatened, and he was forced to step down. He's no longer a rep. That should be like a massive story. Of course, the Deseret News, no one reported on it, but we have a sitting state rep who was threatened out of office because he said we have election issues in this state. The only other person willing to do it was Phil Lyman, to stand up. He's a man of integrity. So get involved. Get his yard signs out. Get a hold of his campaign. Volunteer. We've got a month left. Stand up. Get in the fight. It's an incredible time to be alive. The other thing is, share this content. You've got Eric, Michelle. They're incredible. Share it with 5 people. 5 people you know. Forward this to them. Say, hey, have you heard, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this? You don't have to, if you're afraid of being too bold, just say, what are your thoughts on this? What do you think about Spencer? Do you think he's the real deal? You think he's, just casually forward it to 5, 10 people, because enough people start sharing this and enough people see he's done. He's done. This is a fight we can win. And this is a fight that we, the people, the grassroots, get the chance to win. So like Eric and Michelle said, we were sent for such time as this, and you were sent for such time as this, and we were not meant to sit on the sidelines. So thank you guys for being the type of people who are engaged in this type of conversation, rather than being engaged in TikTok and the rivalry, because there isn't a more important conversation you can have than conversation about the principles of liberty and freedom, especially when they're on the verge of being extinct. So God bless you guys. Thank you for being here. God bless America, and God bless Utah.